Joining now is the Bellator MMA featherweight champion who defends his title since beating Daniel Straus for it back in April for the very first time. He's taken on Daniel Weichel in a rematch in the Bellator 188 main event in Tel Aviv, Israel on November 16th. Please welcome Patricio Pitbull Freire back to the show. Patricio, how are you?
Good, my friend. How about you?
I'm doing really well. Thank you very much for the time. It is much appreciated. Great to chat with you again. Now, firstly, how's life as champion? Of course, this is, you got the title back. You submitted Daniel Straus in the second round at Bellator 178 in April. It's been a little bit since that fight. How are you doing? How's life as champion again?
I feel like all the responsibilities back over my shoulders now, but I'm very happy. It was a gift that I was able to give my son, and now let's keep forward and defend this dream.
Were you happy with the performance? I mean, it couldn't really have gone any better. It's second round submission. You got the finish. You got a big win. Were you and did you expect to submit him?
Yes, pretty much like we expected. The idea was to frustrate him early and try to make him change game plans during the fight, and that was pretty much what happened. He couldn't get me standing, and he tried to take me down. It's like a perfect prediction of what was about to happen.
I talked to your upcoming opponent, Daniel Weichel, very recently, and he questioned whether or not Daniel Straus was fully prepared for you in that fight, whether he was ready to go. What do you think about that? Do you think that he was fully 100% prepared and you were the man, or do you think he was a little underprepared?
I think he came ready to the fight, but he got lost due to the changes that I presented to him, and I respect Weichel's opinion, but I can understand. I mean, I didn't think Straus was prepared for his last fight against Sanchez, the same guy that fought me.
Awesome. And what are your thoughts on rematching Daniel Weichel? Of course, rematches aren't something, that aren't. You're very familiar with rematches. You fought Daniel Straus 4 times, which is incredible just to think of that. This will be your second time fighting Daniel Weichel. What are your thoughts on the rematch in general, and fighting him another time?
It's kind of natural when you are the champion to see guys make their way up to the title and become the number one contenders again, and you are subject to it. You have to face the number one contender. Sometimes guys make their way back, so I see it's a natural thing in the sport. And about fighting him the second time, he's a very tough opponent. He got me hurt in the first round before I knocked him out in the second. And a lot of people, especially his fans, think that he could have beaten me that night, that he could do it now. So let's do it again, and I'll prove everyone that I'm really the best fighter.
And Weichel is, he went 4-0 since that fight in June 2015, 2.5 years ago. Weichel's done really well in the Bellator. I would imagine he was not necessarily on your mind, but I think you probably had him in your head thinking, when you beat Straus, did you sort of think, okay, Daniel Weichel's probably going to be my next title shot or title defense? Did you know that Weichel would be next?
He was matched up against Macapá Teixeira, and I had it in my mind that the winner of that fight would face me after I beat Straus. But up until they were both were coming from big wins and several wins in a row. But up until the decision was read, I thought I'd be fighting Macapá. I gave him the fight. I didn't think Weichel won that fight. And when the scorecards were announced, I was very surprised about it.
So with that in mind, have you been impressed with Weichel's 4-0 run since fighting you, or not much?
I was a bit impressed with what he did. I mean, he's a very resistant guy. He is difficult to be put away, and had some good wins, and as you said, he had a good run. And I was very surprised. He took a brutal knockdown from Macapá in their fight and was able to survive and come back and kept himself into the fight. I was very impressed with it. But no one hits as hard as I do, just me and Mike Tyson.
And because this is a rematch, and you did mention earlier, and it's true, I mean, he did knock you down in that first fight in the first round. He, came close to beating you, and then you, of course, had a, really impressive come-from-behind victory, knocking him out in the second. Will you change your approach for this fight, keeping in mind that it's a rematch? You've met him before, and you sort of know what to expect. Will your game plan and your approach to this fight change? Will it be different than how you went into the first fight?
This is a question that always in the back of his mind and all of his trainers, because the one that knocked him out was Patricio Pitbull, the boxer, and the one the world has seen my last two fights was Patricio Pitbull, the karateka. So, what do you think, Daniel Weichel? Who's fighting you, Patricio Pitbull, the boxer, or the karate guy?
And you're fighting in Israel. This is in Tel Aviv, Israel, I believe, for the very first time, and this is Bellator's second show there. What are your thoughts on that? Are you excited to fight in a new place and try it out? Are you a bit worried just because you've never been there, you don't really know what to expect? What are your thoughts on fighting in Israel?
Everyone from Bellator told me big things about the crowd in Israel, the country, and how amazing it was to stage an event there. So I'm very excited to be performing in front of them and to knowing the country and putting a good show for everyone.
So say you defend the title, you go in there against Daniel Weichel, and you get the job done once again, and you're still the featherweight champion in Bellator. What happens? Do you defend it again, maybe against Emmanuel Sanchez? He is coming off a win over Daniel. He looked really good, really impressive in that fight just recently. Is he sort of the next challenger after Weichel, or would you like to do maybe a super fight? Because you have fought many other contenders, including Pat Curran and Straus and Weichel too. What would be next for you after Weichel?
I would like to fight Michael Chandler. I want to rip his head off. He's an idiot, and he needs someone to put a break on his tongue, and I'll be the guy to do so. I've been pretty much looking forward to that fight for a long time, but I don't know what Bellator has on their minds. I believe Sanchez has qualified himself the number one contender and the rightful guy for the next title shot. So most likely I'll be fighting him.
And it's interesting that you want to fight Michael Chandler at 155, just considering he lost the title in June. Brent Primus is the champion. Keeping that in mind, you don't care about the titles. You still just, don't like Chandler enough where, even though he's not the champion anymore, that's the fight you want over Brent Primus?
Oh, I don't care about the belt. I just want to rip his head off. I'm going to put it over the counter in my house for my mother and my father to see.
And AJ McKee recently called out the winner of you versus Daniel Weichel. He is an undefeated featherweight prospect. He's hyped quite a bit. He's headlining Bellator 187 this weekend against Brian Moore in Dublin, Ireland. Do you know much about AJ McKee? Is he at all on your radar? Do you think he would deserve a title shot, with a win this weekend?
I saw him have some good performance against some nobodies. And please, feed me some new meat.
Are you more confident going into those matches with Daniel Weichel just because you've beat him in the past? Are you more confident than you were when you fought him the first time in June 2015?
Yes, I know what a tough opponent Weichel is. He was the hardest straight that I ever took was his, and he and Straus were the closest guys to knock me out. And I know that it's a very tough step ahead of me, but yes, I'm much more confident than I was the first time.
I'm sort of backtracking here, but I want to touch one more thing about Daniel Straus. How happy were you to put that trilogy and now I guess 4 fights sort of behind you and get Daniel Straus? Because you're looking at your record, your last 6 fights, 3 of them were against Daniel Straus. It was the second fight, the third fight, and now your last fight where you won back the title. How happy are you to put this part of your career that, again, fighting Daniel Straus seemingly every other fight behind you and move on to better things?
I think this story is over. I mean, 3-1 is already a very big score against him, but who knows? Bellator has the last word, and I believe Straus will be knocking on title contention pretty soon, and we'll see what happens. But to me personally, I'm over it. Right?
Yep, it definitely is. 4 fights, maybe even too much. Well, Bellator 188 main event going down in Tel Aviv, Israel on November 16th. That is next Thursday. You're taking on Daniel Weichel in a rematch for the Bellator MMA featherweight title. You are, of course, the champion. Patricio, thank you as always. Last question for you. How did you get the job done November 16th?
Just to complete the answer, sorry. There are other guys coming up like AJ McKee, James Gallagher, Emmanuel Sanchez, so I don't think I'm going to have any rematches anytime soon. That's what I'm looking forward to the most. I want some fresh and new fights ahead of me. I believe I'm going to win this fight with out in the second round with a left hook.
Awesome. Well, Patricio, really appreciated the interview as always, and Mateus, thank you very much for translating. Before I let you guys go, let my audience know where they can find you on social media. If there's anybody you'd like to thank or give a shout out to, the floor is yours.
Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook as Patricio Pitbull all together. And I hope you guys watch the fight and pay attention and get to see the best featherweight in the world in action.